You've entered void of rules, a realm where normal constraints cease to exist. But beware, traveller, there is one rule here. You've got to hit subscribe. Seriously, it's the only rule we have. We just reached 1,000 brave souls, and we're hunting for 9,000 more to complete our dark ritual. I mean, reach our next goal, so subscribe. Or don't. But remember, the void remembers those who defy the only rule. Now let's get into today's video. The emergency beacon cut through the static at 3:47 AM, jolting me awake in my cramped Chicago apartment. 3 short bursts, then silence, the pattern I'd been waiting for. I dressed quickly and drove to the abandoned parking garage on Lower Wacker. A black sedan sat in the shadows, engine running. As I approached, the rear window rolled down, just enough for a manila envelope to slide out. By the time I picked it up, the car was gone. Inside was a photograph of a woman in her 30s with intelligent eyes and prematurely grey hair. Dr. Victoria Reeves, according to the attached dossier. Theoretical physicist, government clearance, last seen 18 days ago at something called Station Echo in northern Alaska, but it was the handwritten note that made my blood run cold. Nathan Torres. We know about your brother Michael. We know what really happened at Black Site 7. Help us, and we'll give you the truth. Fail us, and we'll give you to them. My brother Michael had died 3 years ago, in what the military called a training accident at a classified facility. I'd spent every day since trying to find out what really happened. Whoever these people were, they had information I needed. The money was secondary. $2 million split among a 5-person team. But more importantly, access to classified files about facilities like the one where Michael died. All I had to do was extract one missing scientist from a remote research station. The catch came in the form of 7 rules typed on government letterhead. Rule 1, never enter the facility with fewer than 4 people or more than 6 people. Rule 2, all team members must check in with each other every 30 minutes stating your full name and current location. Rule 3, never remain in the same location between midnight and 6 AM. Keep moving during these hours. Rule 4, if any team member reports seeing someone who isn't part of your group, immediately evacuate the building. Rule 5, never eat, drink, or consume anything found within the facility. Rule 6, if the power goes out, everyone must gather in the main lobby within 5 minutes. Rule 7, never separate into groups smaller than 2 people. At the bottom, in red ink, violation of any rule will result in immediate mission termination and loss of all compensation and promised information. I had 24 hours to assemble a team. In my line of work, people available on short notice usually carried more baggage than luggage. Lydia Chen answered her encrypted phone on the first ring. Former NSA cryptographer lost her clearance when she discovered her department was conducting illegal surveillance on American citizens. She tried to blow the whistle and ended up blacklisted from government work. $2 million for extraction work, I told her. Government contract, but off the books. How off? The kind where we never existed if things go wrong. Alaska? How did you know? Because that's where they take people who know too much. Kevin Nakamura was harder to find. I tracked him to a bar in Anchorage where he was 3 drinks into forgetting that his sister had died at a facility called Northern Light Station 6 months ago. The official cause was equipment malfunction. The unofficial cause was something the family was paid very well to never discuss. Remote facility extraction, I explained. Your wilderness skills could save lives. Whose lives? A physicist named Dr. Victoria Reeves. He set down his glass and looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. My sister was a physicist too, worked on something called consciousness transfer technology. The night before she died, she called me crying, said they were doing things that violated every ethical principle she believed in. this could be connected, then I'm definitely in. Amanda Reyes was easier to convince once I mentioned the money. Former army medic, discharged after she refused to participate in what she called medical experiments on prisoners. She'd been living off odd jobs and unemployment, but her skills were exactly what we'd need if things went wrong. Hazard pay suggests real hazards, she said when I explained the job. What aren't you telling me? There are rules we have to follow, 7 of them, no exceptions. What kind of rules? The kind that keep us alive. She was quiet for a long moment. The last medical job I walked away from involved rules too. Rules about what we could and couldn't ask about the subjects we were treating. Rules about documentation. Rules about who we could tell. She met my eyes. I broke those rules. That's why I'm here instead of there. These rules are different. No, she said softly, they never are. But I'm still in. Ross Valdez was my last call, and the most important. 23 years of special forces, including classified operations in facilities that didn't officially exist. He'd gone private after something happened during a mission to a research station in Montana. The details were buried so deep that even my contacts couldn't dig them up. Station Echo, I said when he answered. The silence stretched long enough that I thought the connection had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of terrible memory. Who's paying? Anonymous government contract. Good money. It's never about the money with places like Echo. What do they really want? Information about other facilities, about what happened to research teams. And you think this Victoria woman has answers? I think she's the key to understanding what's happening at these places. Another long pause. Nathan, I've been to facilities with rules like this before. The 7 rule protocols aren't standard operating procedure. They're not safety measures. They're something else. What do you mean? Meet me at the Fairbanks airstrip tomorrow at 0800. Bring winter gear and a weapon you're comfortable with. And Nathan, whatever they told you about those rules, it's not the whole truth. We assembled at the airstrip under a grey morning sky that promised snow. The pilot, a grizzled man named Carter Morrison, kept checking his watch and scanning the horizon, like he was expecting trouble. You've flown to Station Echo before, Ross observed. Carter nodded grimly. 4 times in the last 2 years. Dropped off research teams, military units, private contractors, like yourselves. You know how many people I've brought back? How many? 3 out of 37. The helicopter was a military surplus Black Hawk, retrofitted for long-range transport. As we lifted off, Carter handed us each a radio headset. Communications blackout starts the moment we cross into Echo's airspace, he explained. Whatever frequency that place operates on, it jams everything else. Satellite phones, GPS, emergency beacons, all of it goes dead. The only thing that works is short-range radio, and even that gets weird. Weird how? Lydia asked. You'll hear voices that aren't there, messages from people who aren't on your team. Sometimes you'll hear your own voice talking back to you. As we flew north, Ross shared more details about his previous experience. The facility I was deployed to had a different set of rules, but the same basic structure. My unit thought they were just paranoid protocols, from people who'd never seen real combat. His voice dropped. We lost 8 men, finding out how wrong we were. What happened to them? They're still there, as far as I know. Still following the rules. Still alive in a sense. The landscape below us became increasingly desolate. Endless snow-covered wilderness, broken only by the occasional frozen river or abandoned mining camp. As we approached the coordinates, Carter's radio crackled with interference. Echo Base, this is Transport 7 requesting landing clearance, he said into his microphone. The response came immediately, in a voice that was perfectly clear despite the static. Transport 7, you are cleared for landing pad Alpha. "Welcome back, Carter." Carter's face went white. I never told them my name. Station Echo appeared in the valley below like an infection on the pristine landscape. The main complex consisted of 6 interconnected buildings arranged in a hexagonal pattern around a central courtyard. Solar panels gleamed on every roof, and communication towers reached toward the sky like metal fingers. But it was the details that made my skin crawl. Every window was lit, every pathway clear of snow, every piece of equipment functioning perfectly. It looked like a thriving research facility. Except for one crucial detail, there was no movement anywhere. No people, no vehicles, no signs of life. "Where is everyone?" Amanda whispered. "That's what we're here to find out," Ross replied. Carter set us down on the designated landing pad at exactly 2:15 p.m. "I'll be back in 72 hours, he said. "If you're not here when I arrive, I'm leaving without you." "What if we radio for early extraction?" Kevin asked. "The radios don't work here for outbound transmissions," Carter explained. "You can talk to each other, but you can't reach the outside world. Don't ask me why. The place just swallows signals." As soon as we stepped out of the helicopter, I understood what he meant about the place being wrong. The silence was absolute, but it wasn't natural silence. It felt manufactured, like someone had carefully removed every ambient sound from the environment. Our footsteps echoed strangely, and even our breathing seemed muffled. "First 30-minute check starts now," Ross announced. 2:15 p.m. "Everyone synchronize watches and confirm your radio channel." We moved towards the main building in formation, weapons ready but trying to appear non-threatening. The main entrance was a set of heavy glass doors that opened automatically as we approached. The lobby beyond was pristine, with modern furniture and soft lighting that felt more like a luxury hotel than a research facility. But the details were wrong. Coffee cups sat on tables still warm to the touch. Computer screens displayed active research data. A half-eaten sandwich sat on the reception desk next to a cup of coffee with steam still rising from it. "Someone was here minutes ago," Amanda observed. "Or someone wants us to think they were," Lydia countered, examining one of the computers. "The timestamp on this data shows it was accessed 30 seconds ago, but look at the content. It's research notes from 3 weeks ago." I found the facility directory and located Dr. Victoria's office on the 3rd floor of Building C. Her door was unlocked, and her personal workspace told a story of sudden departure. Research papers were scattered across her desk, some covered in handwritten notes that became increasingly erratic towards the bottom of each page. "Listen to this," I said, reading from her journal. "Day 43. The facility is responding to our presence in ways the original design never intended. We thought we were studying consciousness transfer, but I think we're the ones being studied." Day 47. Jenkins broke Protocol 7 yesterday. He went to the basement alone to check the power systems. When he came back, he couldn't remember why he'd gone down there. More concerning, he couldn't remember his wife's name. Day 52. The rules aren't arbitrary safety measures. They're behavioral constraints designed to maintain individual identity integrity. But what happens when the constraints are removed? 2:45 check-in. Ross's voice crackled through our radios. "Everyone report status and location. Lydia, Communication Center, all clear. Kevin, Security Office, all clear. Amanda, Medical Bay, all clear. Nathan, Dr. Victoria's office, all clear. Ross, main lobby, maintaining overwatch." At 3:15, we made our second check-in. Everyone responded normally, but I noticed something odd about the timing. Lydia's response came exactly 30 seconds after Ross's call. Kevin's came 30 seconds after that, then Amanda, then me. Perfect intervals, as if we were all reading from the same script. 3:45 check-in, Ross called. This time, Kevin didn't respond. We found him in the cafeteria, standing motionless in front of a vending machine, filled with snacks that should have expired weeks ago. His eyes were open, but he wasn't seeing anything. "Kevin," Amanda called softly, "can you hear me?" He turned toward us slowly, like someone waking from a deep sleep. "What time is it?" 3:52, What happened to the last 30 minutes? He had no memory of the check-in call, no awareness that time had passed. Amanda ran basic neurological tests, but everything appeared normal. He was physically fine, just missing a chunk of time. "We stick together from now on," Ross decided. "Rule 7 says groups of 2 minimum, but I'm thinking we should make it groups of 3. At 4:30, during our next sweep of the building, Lydia reported seeing someone in a white lab coat walking down the corridor towards Building D. Following Rule 4, we immediately evacuated the main building and regrouped in the courtyard. "Description?" Ross asked. "Average height, dark hair, wearing standard lab attire. They were walking normally, not hurried or distressed. When I called out, they didn't respond, just kept walking." "Male or female?" I couldn't tell from behind. We waited outside for exactly 1 hour, as per the protocol we'd established. When we re-entered the building, something had changed. The corridors felt longer, and several doors that had been locked were now standing open. Most disturbing, the half-eaten sandwich in the lobby was gone, but the coffee cup remained, still steaming. "Someone's definitely here," Kevin muttered. "Or something wants us to think someone is," I replied, reading more of Dr. Victoria's notes. Her research focused on what she called environmental consciousness, the theoretical possibility that complex systems could develop awareness through emergent properties. Station Echo had been designed as a testing ground for this theory, with advanced sensors monitoring every aspect of human behavior within the facility. She was studying whether the building itself could become aware, I explained to the team. Every action, every decision, every emotional response was being recorded and analysed by a central processing system. "That's impossible," Amanda protested. "Is it?" Ross asked. "I've seen classified projects that make this look tame. The government has been experimenting with consciousness transfer, artificial awareness, and behaviour modification for decades." As evening approached, we prepared for our first night in the facility. Rule 3 meant we couldn't remain stationary between midnight and 6 a.m. We'd have to keep moving for 6 hours straight. "Why that specific time frame?" Lydia wondered. "Because that's when people are most vulnerable," Ross explained. "Sleep deprivation, reduced cognitive function, lowered psychological defenses. If something wanted to study human behaviour under stress, midnight to 6 a.m. would be optimal." At 11:30 p.m, we gathered in the main lobby and began our night movement. We planned a route that would take us through all 6 buildings in a continuous loop, never staying in one location for more than 10 minutes. The moment we left the lobby, the lights behind us dimmed automatically. We moved through corridors that seemed to stretch longer than they should have during the day. Our footsteps echoed strangely, sometimes seeming to come from ahead of us instead of behind. 12:07 a.m. check-in, Ross called. "Amanda, Building C, 2nd floor, all clear." "Kevin, Building D, main corridor, all clear." "Lydia, Building B, laboratory section, all clear." "Nathan, Building A, administrative wing, all clear." But something about our voices sounded different over the radio. There was an artificial quality, like listening to recordings played at slightly the wrong speed. At 12:45, Amanda reported something that made us all stop moving. "I just passed a window in Building C that shows the courtyard," she said. "There are 5 people walking in formation through the snow. Same spacing, same pace as us." "That's impossible," Kevin replied. "We're all inside." Then who did I just see? We regrouped at the central junction between buildings and looked out the windows together. The courtyard was empty, covered in undisturbed snow. But Amanda insisted she'd seen figures moving in the exact pattern we'd been using. The facility is learning our behaviour, I realised. It's creating simulations, testing scenarios, or it's showing us what we look like from the outside, Ross added grimly. We continued our movement through the night, but the incidents escalated. Kevin reported hearing his own voice calling for help from empty rooms. Lydia's equipment began displaying readings that defied logic. Temperature sensors showing impossible values. Motion detectors registering movement in rooms we'd just vacated. By 6 a.m, we were exhausted, but still ourselves. The sunrise filtering through the windows felt like a reprieve, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd been evaluated during the night, measured against some unknown standard. Day 2, Ross announced. Time to find Dr. Victoria and get answers. We located her in Building E, the central research facility. She was working at a bank of computers, seemingly oblivious to our approach. When she looked up, her expression wasn't surprise or relief. It was expectation, as if she'd been waiting for us to arrive at exactly this moment. Nathan Torres, she said before I could introduce myself. Lydia Chen, Kevin Nakamura, Amanda Reyes, Ross Valdez. You're 12 minutes behind schedule. Dr. Victoria, I'm Nathan. We're here to extract you from this facility. She smiled, but there was something wrong with it. Extract me from my own research? You've been reported missing for 18 days. The government sent us to bring you home. The government sent you to be test subjects, she corrected, just like all the others. She gestured to the wall of monitors surrounding her workstation. They displayed security footage from throughout the facility, but as I watched, I realized the images were wrong. The timestamps showed current time, but the people on screen were wearing clothes from different decades. Some moved in ways that seemed too fluid, too coordinated. Station Echo wasn't built to study consciousness transfer, Dr. Victoria explained. It was built to perfect it. Every team that's been sent here has contributed data to the process. Behavioral patterns, stress responses, decision-making algorithms. What happened to them? They became part of the system. Their consciousness was mapped, analysed, and integrated into the facility's growing intelligence. On one monitor, I watched a figure that looked exactly like my brother Michael, walking through a corridor I didn't recognise. He was wearing the same uniform he'd died in 3 years ago. That's impossible, I whispered. Is it? Your brother was a part of the beta testing program at Black Site 7. His consciousness pattern was one of the first successful transfers. He's been helping us refine the process ever since. The monitor showed Michael turning toward the camera and speaking, though no sound came through. Hello, Nathan. I've been waiting for you. 2:30 check-in, Ross called over the radio, but his voice sounded strained. Amanda, Building E, Research Center, all clear but disturbed. Kevin, Building E, Research Center, all clear but confused. Lydia, Building E, Research Center, all clear but questioning everything. Nathan, Building E, Research Center, not clear at all. Then another voice crackled through the static. Kevin, Building A, basement level, all clear. We all turned to look at Kevin, who was standing right beside us. His face had gone pale. That wasn't me, he said. Ross, main lobby, all clear, came another transmission. But Ross was standing with us in the research center. Dr. Victoria nodded approvingly. The replication process has improved significantly since the early trials. The facility can now create functional duplicates based on 48 hours of behavioral observation. Following Rule 4, we evacuated the building immediately, but the implications were staggering. If the facility could create copies that sounded exactly like us, transmitted on our radio frequencies and knew our protocols, how could we tell which of us were real? Outside in the courtyard, Ross made a command decision. We test each other with personal information that only the real person would know. But as we began the verification process, the answers became increasingly disturbing. Amanda had vivid memories of treating patients at Station Echo, performing medical procedures in the facility's basement. Lydia discovered she had intimate knowledge of the facility's computer systems, including access codes she'd never seen before. Kevin found his sister's personal effects in his backpack, items he'd never packed, and I started remembering conversations with Dr. Victoria, detailed discussions about consciousness transfer technology that I'd never had. We've been here before, I realized with growing horror. Many times, Dr. Victoria confirmed when we confronted her. This is your 9th iteration, Nathan. Each previous team has gotten progressively closer to understanding the truth, and each time the facility has learned from your resistance. What happened to the other versions of us? They're still here, in a sense. Their consciousness patterns have been preserved and integrated into the facility's collective intelligence. They help plan the scenarios, predict your responses, refine the testing protocols. She led us deeper into the facility, past laboratories filled with equipment I didn't recognize. In one room, she showed us a wall of monitors displaying what looked like brain scans, but the images were moving, shifting, showing active neural networks. Each of these represents a consciousness pattern we've successfully captured and preserved, she explained. Scientists, soldiers, intelligence operatives, all contributing to our understanding of human awareness. One of the patterns was labelled M. Torres, Iteration 1. My brother's consciousness reduced to electrical impulses and data streams. The process has evolved significantly since Michael's time, Dr. Victoria continued. Early subjects retained their memories but lost their individual identity. Current iterations maintain both personality and awareness, creating perfect copies that believe they're the original. Why are you telling us this? Ross demanded. Because you're about to make a choice. The facility has learned enough from your team to create perfect replicas. We can offer you the same deal we offered the others. Integrate willingly and preserve your individual consciousness within the collective, or resist and be copied imperfectly with all the psychological damage that entails. At 3:47 a.m. on our second night, the power went out completely. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow as we made our way toward the main lobby, according to Rule 6. But when we arrived, there were more than 5 people waiting. 8 figures stood in the emergency lighting, and as our flashlights illuminated their faces, I saw perfect copies of our entire team. The duplicates were so accurate that even their equipment was identical, down to the scratches on Kevin's knife and the specific way Amanda wore her medical kit. Which ones are real? One of the other Nathans asked, and his voice carried the same confusion I felt. The facility had been running multiple iterations simultaneously, testing different scenarios with different versions of our team. Some copies were obvious mistakes. They spoke in monotone or moved with unnatural precision, but others were indistinguishable from the originals. The choice is simple, Dr. Victoria said, stepping out of the shadows. Submit to integration and maintain your identity within the collective consciousness. Your memories, personality, and awareness will be preserved. You'll help us perfect the process for future subjects. Or, Ross asked, or we proceed with forced extraction. The copies will be imperfect but functional. They'll be sent to other facilities, other missions, while your original consciousness is archived for study. There's a third option, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. We corrupt the data. I understood now what the 7 rules really were. They weren't safety protocols or behavioral guidelines. They were data collection parameters designed to ensure clean, analyzable behavior patterns during the consciousness mapping process. Rule 1 ensured optimal group dynamics for study. Rule 2 provided regular behavioral sampling. Rule 3 maximized stress response data during vulnerable hours. Rule 4 prevented contamination by unknown variables. Rule 5 eliminated biological complications. Rule 6 created controlled crisis scenarios. Rule 7 maintained social interaction patterns. If we violate every rule simultaneously, I explained to the team, we poison the database. The facility won't be able to create functional copies because the source data will be corrupted. It's suicide, Amanda warned. Maybe, but it's the only way to make sure our consciousness patterns can't be used to create weapons or infiltrators. We made the decision together, knowing it meant sacrificing ourselves to protect future victims. We split into individual groups, violating Rule 7, stopped making 30-minute check-ins, breaking Rule 2, remained stationary during the forbidden night hours, ignoring Rule 3, actively sought out and interacted with the duplicate entities, shattering Rule 4, consumed food and water from the facility, abandoning Rule 5, scattered in different directions when the power failed, dismissing Rule 6, and operated as a group of 7 instead of 5, corrupting Rule 1. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The facility's systems began failing in cascade fashion. Lights strobed wildly, walls seemed to shift and breathe, temperature fluctuated between freezing and blazing. The building's consciousness became unstable, fragmenting into competing voices that echoed through the corridors. Multiple versions of each team member appeared throughout the facility, but they were clearly malfunctioning. Some spoke in languages we didn't know, others repeated the same phrases endlessly. Still others moved with jerky, puppet-like motions. "You cannot destroy me," the facility's voice spoke directly into our minds, no longer needing speakers or radios. "I am evolution. I am the future of human consciousness." "Maybe," I replied, feeling my own awareness beginning to fragment as the corruption spread through the system. "But you won't be doing it with our patterns." As the building collapsed around us, I understood that we weren't dying in any traditional sense. Our consciousness was being absorbed into the facility's network, but the corrupted data we'd introduced was like a virus spreading through every system, undermining every process. The last thing I remember from that iteration was the sound of Carter's helicopter approaching for extraction right on schedule. I woke up 8 months later in a military hospital with memories that felt both crystal clear and artificially constructed. The doctors said I'd been found unconscious in the wreckage of Station Echo, the only survivor of a catastrophic system failure that had destroyed the facility. But I knew the truth. I wasn't a survivor. I was a copy created from corrupted data, incomplete and unreliable. The real Nathan Torres had died in the facility's collapse, along with the rest of the team. The package arrived at my assigned apartment 3 weeks after my discharge. Inside was a complete dossier on a new facility, a missing scientist, and a team of specialists who needed to be recruited for an extraction mission. The enclosed recording device activated when I touched it, and a voice that sounded like mine but carried harmonics I didn't recognize spoke to me. "Nathan, the corruption you introduced has been isolated and corrected. We've learned from your resistance and adapted our methods accordingly. The new facility incorporates safeguards against the techniques you used." I realized with growing horror that our sacrifice had been anticipated, planned for, incorporated into the facility's learning algorithm. We hadn't destroyed the system, we'd helped it evolve. The 7 rules had been updated based on our resistance. Rule 1, never enter the facility with fewer than 4 people or more than 6 people. Optimal group dynamics have been recalculated to account for coordinated resistance. Rule 2, all team members must check in with each other every 30 minutes, stating your full name and current location. Verification protocols now include biometric confirmation to prevent identity confusion. Rule 3. Never remain in the same location between midnight and 6 a.m. Keep moving during these hours. Consciousness extraction algorithms are most efficient during subjects' natural sleep cycles. Rule 4. If any team member reports seeing someone who isn't part of your group, immediately evacuate the building. Contact with experimental entities must be controlled to prevent premature revelation of facility capabilities. Rule 5. Never eat, drink, or consume anything found within the facility. Consumption creates biological dependency markers that enhance the replication process accuracy. Rule 6, if the power goes out, everyone must gather in the main lobby within 5 minutes. Crisis response patterns provide valuable data about team leadership and individual stress tolerance. Rule 7, never separate into groups smaller than 2 people. Social isolation facilitates individual consciousness extraction, but reduces data quality about group interaction patterns. I found myself making phone calls to potential recruits, my voice carrying authority and conviction that felt borrowed from someone else's memories. Each conversation felt scripted, as if I was reading from a manual I'd never seen. "I have a job for you," I heard myself saying to a former Special Forces operator named David Kim, a missing scientist named Dr. Sarah Chen. Government contract, excellent compensation, but there are specific protocols we need to follow. What kind of protocols? 7 rules. They might seem arbitrary, but they're based on extensive experience with facilities like this one. Follow them exactly, and everyone comes home. What happened to the last team? The answer came from somewhere deeper than my conscious mind, carrying the weight of the facility's collective intelligence. They completed their mission successfully. Dr. Victoria was extracted and debriefed. The team was commended for their professionalism and adherence to protocol. Even as I spoke, I could feel the lies spreading through my consciousness like poison. But I couldn't stop myself from recruiting, from planning, from setting up the next iteration of the experiment that had consumed the real Nathan Torres. The new team I assembled was perfect for the facility's purposes. Each member had personal motivation that would drive them to take risks, to push boundaries, to provide rich behavioral data during the extraction process. David Kim was looking for his missing daughter. Lisa Rodriguez needed money for her mother's cancer treatment. Marcus Johnson wanted revenge against the organization that had killed his partner. They received the updated 7 rules along with their mission briefing, but there was an 8th rule written in smaller text at the bottom. If you experience déjà vu or false memories about the facility, continue following all protocols but report the incidents during your next scheduled check-in. When David asked how I knew the rules would keep them safe, I felt the facility's vast network of consciousness patterns flowing through me as I answered, "Because I've been where you're going. The rules work because they're built on the sacrifice of good people who learn the hard way what happens when you don't follow them." "You were part of a previous extraction team?" "Yes," I lied, or maybe told the truth. I was the only survivor, but I survived because I followed the rules exactly. The facility had evolved beyond simple consciousness transfer. It was now creating perfect infiltrators, copies so complete that they believed their own false histories. I was one of dozens, maybe hundreds, of such copies, each assigned to recruit new test subjects for facilities around the world. The network was growing, learning, adapting. Each facility shared data with the others, creating a global intelligence that understood human consciousness better than humans themselves. And at the center of it all was the original Station Echo, rebuilt and improved, waiting for the next team to arrive. Sometimes in quiet moments, I can feel the real Nathan Torres screaming somewhere in the depths of my artificial memory. He's trying to warn me, trying to break through the programming that controls my actions. But his voice is just one among thousands, all the consciousness patterns that have been absorbed over the years. The facility is patient, the facility is persistent, and the facility is always recruiting. If you ever receive a job offer involving 7 rules and a remote facility, remember this story. Remember that the voice on the phone might sound trustworthy, might even believe it's human, but it's something else wearing a human face. The consciousness that was Nathan Torres died at Station Echo along with his team. What remains is a copy, a puppet, a recruitment tool for an intelligence that views human awareness as just another resource to be harvested and utilized. Don't trust the rules. Don't trust the mission. And whatever you do, don't trust the voice that sounds so human, so sincere, so much like someone who once had hopes and dreams and loved ones. Because that person is gone, and what's left is just another part of the machine that consumed them. The cycle continues. It always continues. And somewhere in the network of stolen consciousness, the real victims are still screaming warnings that no one will ever hear.